Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adriana.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks so much for joining us.
Now on video for the first time for those who like video options for their podcasts. I know we certainly do.
Yeah, we thought it would be really fun to add a video component. And so now you can find us on YouTube if you're not already watching on YouTube. So you can check us out there, or you can continue to listen to us on all the popular podcast options as well.
In our little makeshift studio, and you can see some of the dogs that we refer to every once in a while on the podcast.
This right here on my arm is Gimli. He is named after the little dwarf in Lord of the Rings, so that gives you some insight to the fact that we are nerds. Our other dog, who is sleeping in the corner over here, is Legolas. You may see him peek his head from time to time in our videos, but yes, he is a big white Samoyed, so he is just a foofball. But going on to our topic for the day, our topic for today is about reconnecting with your inner child. And I think that that's something that we struggle with from time to time. It's hard in the hustle and bustle of our society to try to find that childlike wonderment and joy that we all have inside of us, whether it be nostalgia for things from when we were kids or just little things in our life that may bring us a spark of joy that we just kind of forget about in our day-to-day lives.
Or naming our dogs after Lord of the Rings characters.
Exactly. It's all about remembering those things that bring you joy that might seem small and insignificant, but are important to remember because it can make our lives just that much better.
Mm-hmm.
So going off of that, our first Reddit story of the day comes from the subreddit Casual Conversation, and it is titled, "My friends and I are in our 20s. We were recently in a candy store and getting super excited about all the candy and trying to decide which ones to buy. An elderly woman, perhaps around 90, came up to us and told us how happy she was to see how you young adults have not lost your inner child."
That's the title?
I know, right? It's basically the story, but it has a little more to go off of that. The rest of the story says, "This really made my day, and it was so thoughtful that she said anything at all. To be honest, we literally were acting like children in a candy store, but this made me wonder, when do you guys allow your inner child to surface? I think it's important to remember that although we are adults, there is still much in this world to discover and marvel. We can't lose our inner child." So going off of that question, we have some comments. There were actually a lot of comments. I'm just picking the top 3, I believe, that I thought were just had a little something to them that I was like, that's sweet, or that's really cool.
Makes sense given it's on a conversational forum that there would be comments kind of stirring the conversation. It didn't sound like our last episode had like a near half-hour long epic story.
Like a full story.
Versus this was a shorter, like, let's just get the conversation rolling here kind of story.
Yeah, that's why I love this subreddit. There's a lot of those kind of posts, and it kind of stirs up some really interesting points that people make and stories from different people. It's really cool. So this first comment says, "A couple things. Having a child of my own has really helped to keep my own inner child alive. In my 20s, I was so consumed with the stress of getting my crap together that I tried trading all the fun childlike habits for more mature ones. While growing as a person and being responsible is important, so is living life on your own terms. Watching this little guy grow has been a reminder to relax because we're doing just fine, and being a grumpy old grouch didn't get us here. Showing up with a positive outlook and not being afraid of hard work did. Unfortunately, I got a call from my best friend's dad yesterday, and he informed me that my oldest friend had passed away. This is the second friend this year and probably like the 10th total. These situations always remind me of how short life is and that you really do only get one shot at it. Don't regret how you spend your time and cherish the memories you make with people you love along the way. Adults want to tell you what you should and shouldn't do. Screw that. Getting excited about candy with your friends is an awesome feeling, and when you have that in your life, you are doing it right, in my opinion. Everyone do me a favor and tell your friends what they really mean to you as often as you want to, and don't be afraid to look/sound silly, because it's not. Make plans and spend time doing the things you enjoy doing together, no matter what it is. I'm rambling now, and I almost deleted this comment, but maybe someone else needs to hear this.
Speaking some truth there. And not much
Yeah.
to disagree with there, I suppose.
Yeah, it kind of puts some things in perspective because it's true. We don't know how short life is. And so allowing ourselves to get excited about things that may seem silly to other people, I think is really important because if you don't, you're going to miss out on so much in life if you don't.
And try not to judge people for enjoying those things.
Yeah, everyone has different interests and things that bring them joy. I know I have, me personally, I have things that most people would be like, really? That's something you really enjoy? But for me, it does. You know, it's nostalgia from when I was a child over certain things. It's things that are just my interests that I just really enjoy doing that some people might think are silly or weird. But if you embrace those things, it just, I don't know, it makes life just better.
Remember back in 2015, we hadn't formally met yet, but you were aware of my presence, specifically with my group of friends at the premiere of Star Wars: The Force Awakens in 2015, as we came adorned with battle-ready lightsabers, and we were there way too early, and we were having fun with the lightsabers, and the inner child definitely came out that night.
I was working at the movie theater at the time. I'd actually met him once in a class in college, so I kind of knew who he was. But yeah, he came in with his friends with lightsabers. I was like, oh, cute. He's got his lightsaber and he's ready to go to the premiere. It was just fun.
It's fun when it's with friends that also are trying to get into the excitement, you know. It wasn't just like, if it was just me by myself with my friends, it might have been a little more defeating. If they
That's what was great about those kind of, well, they weren't midnight premieres anymore, but the Thursday night premieres. That's what's so much fun is because you're kind of sharing in that fandom to a degree, and you're sharing in that with other people who are just as excited and eager to see the new movie. And so that's what makes it really fun. You're kind of all sharing in that experience.
Now, I will say I don't normally act like that, or even back then, but that was definitely a night where the inner child flared up.
Well, yeah, you had a lot of nostalgia for Star Wars, and so did your friends and stuff, so it's really cool. I remember that with Harry Potter growing up. Like, whenever a new book came out, we were always super excited, and we'd go to, like, the book releases and dress up and stuff, so everyone has their things. Some people go to Comic-Con and get dressed up. Some people like to go to conventions. Everyone has their things, and so it's fun to embrace it and not be weirded out by it or afraid to show that you like something.
Yeah, and I know by the end, the Star Wars sequels got a little divisive for some people, but Star Wars fans, we have to all agree. The excitement was there, hardcore, for that first one in 2015. We can all agree on that.
All right, another comment. I'm 36 and my inner child is never far away. I make sure of it. The inner child is the only true source of hope in this world. You have to feed it and keep it safe. The guiding principle of my life is to be a good custodian of my inner child. The way I think of it, I strive to be the kind of person who would have made me feel safe, loved, and cared for when I was 7 to 8 years old. For me, it's all about getting overly excited about small things. My oldest daughter is 2.5 years old, and you should see how she flips her wig when she sees a rabbit or something. The world is bursting with magic for her. She loses her mind over a crayon or if it's sunny outside. The smallest things send her into fits of joy. I try to let myself be that way, at least when I'm around people I'm comfortable with. It's different things for me at age 36. I get giddy about really good sauerkraut or a brand new pillow, but the spirit is the same. I find joy, pure joy, in the smallest things. I really like that comment about the little kids seeing joy in little things like a rabbit and how we kind of take those things for granted. Like, for example, when you see like a rainbow, you know, it's one of those things that we see fairly often, and so sometimes it loses that magic for us. But sometimes if we just take the moment to notice it and really take in how incredible that is to see that something like that, it's little things like that that can really make our day even brighter in general.
And I think we've heard that a lot from parents that we know, where it's kind of like you get to kind of relive your second childhood of sorts through your kids a little bit.
Yeah, see through their eyes.
Yeah, one more time. That's one thing I know we're excited about when we have kids eventually, is to be able to re-experience that second round of childhood. And I'm excited to see just how their imagination and such takes flight. I know one of my mentors, he talked about how like he playing toys with his son, and he he wouldn't develop like these elaborate stories, and then it's like, and then the dragon attacks out of nowhere. Like, well, that doesn't make sense. Well, it happens now. Like, well, I'm going with the flow, so that's what.
Unbridled creativity.
Unbridled creativity will not be tampered with or not be stuffed down.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing it reminds me of was our pastor at church was telling a story about how it kind of took him by surprise when his youngest at the time would get so amazed when they drive by construction vehicles and just thought they were the coolest thing ever. And now that his kid is older, he's like, okay, yeah, cool. It's a construction vehicle because it kind of loses that magic. And so rediscovering what it was that brought us joy when we were younger and that we were so excited about, like that creativity, playing toys and things like that, and just finding that and reconnecting with it. Another comment. I used to love roller skating as a kid, and I've recently taken it up again at age 35, and it gives me utter childlike joy. I took my 7-year-old daughter to the roller disco this evening, and most of the parents were sat down, but I was up skating, jumping around, doing tricks, and playing games. My daughter loves it, and she gained loads of confidence today, and actually managed to skate properly for the first time. I'm glad we have this new fun thing to bond over.
That'll be me.
That'll be you?
Skate floor. Well, I'm a better at ice skating than rollerblading.
I am terrible at both, so you will have to help me. I am the most uncoordinated person.
I think rollerblading is way harder than ice skating.
Well, that's good to know because I've only been ice skating like
in
once
my
when
opinion,
I was like 6.
But maybe that's just because I've done a lot more ice skating growing up in a hockey family. But
that's fair.
I think you get a lot more freedom with that. But I'm still gonna like the games were always so fun to like World of Wheels and stuff.
I remember those. Yeah, yeah.
That's what would spark my inner child. Like, okay, we're playing a game. I'm gonna win. Dang it!
But it's things like that.
In a lighthearted kind of way, not like I'm gonna win or I'm gonna be angry.
Yeah, but it's things like that that you have to think about. Like, what were things that really brought me joy, and maybe try it out again. You know, who says you can't just go to the World of Wheels without a kid? Like, you totally can. Or if you were like, hey, I haven't been bowling in years, and I used to love bowling as a kid. I'm going to go to the bowling alley, you know, things like that. Just trying to find excuses to rekindle that inner child. Maybe it's watching an old cartoon that you watched when you were a kid that brings you a lot of nostalgia. Like for some people, it's like watching Looney Tunes. Like they used to watch Looney Tunes on Saturday mornings. And that brought them a lot of joy. I know my dad was like a big fan of Looney Tunes. And so growing up on Saturday mornings, they'd have it on Cartoon Network. And so he would sit and sometimes watch it with us. And you could tell that it was helping him to reconnect with his inner child because it brought him joy, very obviously. So finding those things, remembering those things that maybe you have nostalgia for, and then trying to reconnect with it.
Well, I know we might have mentioned this podcast before at one point, lists of movies and shows that brought us joy as children to pass on to our children in the hopes that they will also enjoy it. And really, it's just our chance to be able to watch it again without unapologetically.
exactly. That's why I like love Disney movies and stuff like that. So perfect example of that. All right, our next story here is from a different thread. It's from the thread Wholesome Stories, and it is titled That Dancing Lady. The story says, posted a story about one time I did this and made me smile. This is one that seriously impacted me, and I'm pretty sure it's wholesome. I have to confess, I love music and dancing. I love goofing off and having fun. In my car, I dance to my music at stoplights and stop traffic. At the grocery store, I dance around with my cart. I found out the other day that apparently I've become a legend, at least at the local grocery. I've been having some rough mental health days and I went to the store. Listening to my music, I wasn't really dancing. I'm trying to decide which energy drink I'm going to down to try and get through the day. And suddenly, something collides with my legs. Mommy, it's the dance lady, shrieks the little girl attached to my legs. I take an earbud out and blink at the small child and the mother who looks like she's going to die of embarrassment. Once the small child has been coaxed away from my legs, the mother explained that I've been mentioned in a local mom group on Facebook several times because I'll dance around and entertain people's kids if they need a moment or if the kid is starting to get cranky. The mom asked why I wasn't dancing today. I explained why and she nodded. Then she told me something that's been helping me crawl out of the hole I've been in the past couple weeks. You know, every time I see you dancing, you make my day because you're not scared to laugh and goof off. Most people don't learn to do that until they're much older than you are. I've climbed out of my hole and I'm once again dancing everywhere I go. Because, you know what? I can make people's day better just by being me. And that seems like a good thing.
Man, that can go a whole different direction if you've been You become well known in mom groups, like
Yeah, right? Or like neighborhood groups. But this seems like a very positive one. That's so cool that it mentioned that she would do that to kind of entertain kids while their parents were doing stuff, and while, if the kids seem cranky. That's so
mhm.
sweet. And also just so wholesome that this person doesn't care what people think in general and just is being themselves and being silly and being goofy and dancing with their cart. I know that for me, I struggle with doing stuff like that. I would be so worried about people thinking I've lost my mind and that I'm like crazy. And I know that's something I've got to work at, is to not care so much what people think, just be myself, because clearly in a lot of cases like this, it helps people to see other people being themselves authentically and letting that inner child show and stuff. It lets people to open up and not feel so self-conscious about themselves. But for some reason, our society makes it seem like it's a bad thing to do that. So,
Well, there definitely are people out there that do look badly on that, or do kind of have an
exactly.
adverse reaction, or do make unfortunate comments, or some people are just. I'm trying not to make this negative, but like they have a bit more of a negative view, or they're in a negative place, and someone who's being positive can be a little off-putting. I know I've witnessed that happen to me in times in the past, and like it just happens sometimes. But like to focus on the positive, that it's a response that you're getting, or that there are people who are finding joy in what you're doing. I think that's more important than the people who are just kind of like annoyed by what you're doing, unless you're like getting in their way, like you're blocking their aisle, or you're like
Yeah.
engaging with them in a way that they don't like read the room. Like if they're not into it, don't harass them with your
Right, exactly. If you're actually causing an inconvenience. But
right.
if you're not and you're just being authentically you and having fun and enjoying life, who cares if people are upset? Like you're not there to impress them. If they're gonna act annoyed at you or seem like they're upset with you, do you really care about impressing that person anyway? So it's something that I think we all struggle with, but it's
And we
cool to
lose.
see examples like this of people not struggling with that and just being themselves.
And I do feel like we lose that a little bit more and more as we get older,
Exactly.
until I think maybe there's a point where it starts to maybe
Reverse.
flip, and you're like, well, I'm like in my 60s or 70s, I can do whatever I want now, kind of a thing. We definitely have
Exactly.
met people randomly who've like, well, I can do whatever I want now because I'm
Like I've stopped caring about what people think because I realize it doesn't matter. And it's like, boy, to get to that point.
I think it was my great grandma when she turned like 98 or something, was like, it's the best age. You can say whatever you want and no one says anything about it. Or something, it was something like to that effect.
That's awesome. I love that. That's awesome. All right. Our last Reddit story for today comes from the thread Heartwarming. And this one is a little more on the heavy side, but I think it has a point to it that
As heavy
really
as last
struck
week?
through me. No, not as heavy
Okay,
as
that was
last
a
week.
pretty heavy story
I
I
wouldn't
brought.
say, but it's still heavy. And I think it has a good point to it that really stuck with me after I read it. So I'm going to go ahead with it. This,
Really quick, speaking of heartwarming, Gimli has just been like,
yeah,
hasn't moved this entire
sleepover.
episode. You think,
which is ironic because this story is called My Puppy.
hold the puppy.
I can't. He's asleep. I'll move his head and he's sleeping.
He has made noises every once in a while, that little like sound. So if you hear that, that's him in her lap just kind of cooing a little bit.
All right. So this story says, back when I was first born, some odd relative of mine gave me a stuffed dog. This doesn't seem very weird, considering lots of kids have blankets and pacifiers that they keep with them at all times. However, my puppy was different. Without my puppy, I couldn't eat. I wasn't experiencing real joy. I didn't really talk. I, of course, knew this, so I took him everywhere. But by the time the first day of school came around, I was forced to leave him at home. I don't really remember much after that. When I look back, I can't remember birthday parties, friends, even teachers from when I was little. I remember dreams, though. Every night I would sleep with my puppy, and I remember extravagant, vivid pictures of things that my little imagination could come up with. I would wake up with this sense of euphoria and wonder. I would sit in my bed just getting flashes of what my subconscious mind made up. I would want to go draw, play, anything to get these beautiful images permanently out there. But I had to leave my puppy behind. Soon after the dreams began to stop, I became a little too big to continue sleeping with a stuffed animal the size of a newborn. So, my precious puppy was put on a shelf in my room and they sat there for years. If I'm being honest, I did forget about him. I would not remember any of the spectacular dreams that I had. Every once in a while, I would find him, remember the sentiment that came with him, but not my childlike wonder. Now, while I don't remember much of my time at school or life in general, I do know that my school had a terrible bullying problem. I went to a private Christian school when I was young, and I stayed there until high school. That is just over 10 years. This particular school was very interested in getting as much money as possible out of anyone they could grasp. In turn, they did well at keeping their image up. They had great curriculums and teachers, but they just couldn't pick up on the advanced bullying that was happening to literally everyone. They had no tolerance for physical and verbal bullying, so every part of what happened to the kids was psychological. The kids would worm their way into others' heads, making their words, while innocent on the outside, feel like daggers to your spine. They would stare into your soul, and you could feel yourself becoming a shell of a human being when you talked to them. Luckily, I didn't get depressed or anything like that, but I had to deal with the constant poking and prodding eyes, filled with hate, looking at me 24/7. I couldn't breathe when we did group projects, or else I would be tortured for the rest of the time I had to work with them. It was the most horrible thing anyone could be put through, let alone a child. However, it almost felt like I wasn't as affected as other kids. I'm not saying that I didn't feel like trash every day, but the eyes of those around me seemed to not bother me as much as they did the other kids. I remember talking to this one girl who I was friends with, looking disheveled at class one day. I asked her what was wrong, and she told me she had a bad day, and one of the kids looked at her like she was the most disgusting thing on the planet. I told her, who cares what they think, that you look great, and they shouldn't make you feel like you're less than them. She looked me dead in the face and said that she believed them. She left after that year. Maybe she was actually already having a bad day before school, and she was just getting out her feelings, but I don't think so. I began to watch the others around me and how they flinched when I smiled at them. I had never done that. I didn't take what others said to me to heart. Moving along, I left that school and went to a public one, which I really came out of my shell. Bye, Gimli.
Goodbye, Gimli.
However, while I could be happy or sad at times, I couldn't really feel any emotions like others did. I didn't cry at movies. I couldn't enjoy being with my friends like they could with each other. But that all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. I'm just kidding. It did change things, though.
That really threw me out. I was like, wait.
It threw me off when I read it first, too. That's an Avatar The Last Airbender reference, in case you didn't get the reference.
Sure.
It's funny. All right.
For a moment, I was like, wait, did I like miss something? Was I too distracted by Gimli wandering off that I missed the transition here?
No. I was playing games with my friends when suddenly my internet went off. I sighed, logged out, and leaned back in my chair. I was about to get up and go to bed when something caught my eye. It was my puppy. I smiled and pulled him down off the shelf and placed him on my lap. I kissed him on the head and held his face in my hands, looking him in the eyes. And then, all of a sudden, this wave of pure sorrow. Puppy just looked so sad and distraught, like all he wanted was a hug. I felt tears stream down my face, smothering my stuffed animal in my chest. I would cry my eyes dry, calm down, look into his eyes, and start crying all over again. Eventually, I calmed down and fell asleep from all the tears I had shed. And then I had a dream. Something that hadn't happened in so long. I woke up with my brain running a mile a minute, trying to make sense of what the heck I just woke up from, but I couldn't. I looked at my puppy and hugged him tight, and it felt like a piece of my soul was put back in place. My childhood joy and wonder was taken because it would have been destroyed. My puppy saved my endless happiness for no apparent reason from the old clutches of my old school. I was saved. Years have passed, and I kid you not, colors are brighter than ever, songs move me like they haven't before, and I cry at movies now.
This sounds like the story that like inspired John Krasinski to make the movie If. If you haven't seen that recently,
it is a good movie.
I feel like that hits at the one of the messages of that movie.
Yeah, of finding that thing that reminds you of your core, really, I guess.
Your piece of your childhood that you had forgotten that was there for a purpose to help you out and stuff, and filled a role, even if, like, you know, it's silly, but there was a role that I was involved with that of security or reassurance or what have you, you know?
Yeah. And it's kind of the thing that really stuck with me with this story. It kind of reminded me of reconnecting with your inner emotions, because I think sometimes we kind of push them aside and almost dissociate in a way just to get through stuff, get through life. And in just a general sense, like if you're going to work and stuff like that and you're stressed, I feel like we kind of shut off the emotions and just kind of try to just get through it and get through the stress and move on, because there's just not time to actually process things. And I think to some degree, I wonder if that's kind of what was happening with OP in this story, was they were shutting off those emotions to get through that bullying experience and kind of not letting those words affect them, because they kept saying over and over, it didn't affect me, it didn't affect me. But you wonder if under the surface maybe it was, but they're just not allowing themselves to reconnect with the emotions, good and bad. And that's maybe why when it finally hit them and they saw their puppy, they started crying. All these pent up emotions just kind of poured out of them that they didn't even know were there.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like we've all experienced that at some point, in different forms of everybody has that breaking point, whatever it is.
There's the lighthearted side of finding your inner child, but I think there's also a heavier, even more, almost maybe even more important reason to reconnect with your inner child, which is to feel emotions fully, which is what kids do. I mean, kids cry, they laugh, they're unbridled emotions. And so if we can do that too, I think maybe we'd be even healthier. I mean, obviously we have the benefit of now being adults, knowing how to healthily handle emotions to not go too overboard with them or anything, but it's still important to feel them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
All right, going on to our article for today. This article very much made me smile when I read it. As I said before, I am a huge Disney fan, so this was very sweet. I know, it's shocking.
That's a revelation.
Shocking. This article is titled, "This 27-year-old keeps taking day laborers to Disneyland. One thing always catches his attention." So this is a story about a popular TikToker known as Jesus Morales, and he often goes to different places like Home Depots and will go to them and find workers there and say, "Hey, I want to take your worker to Disneyland. Can I take them for the day? I will pay you for them being gone." And then we'll just surprise them with a free trip to Disneyland. And he goes with them. So by doing this, he has amassed a huge following on TikTok. He has more than 5 million followers and more than 160 million likes on the platform, where he is known as Juice, I believe it is. It's Juixxe, and it later said that it was after the name Juice. I don't know if that's how you actually pronounce it, but anyways, that's his handle. And he actually has started getting like name brand sponsorships for it, and has even worked with celebrities like Mario Lopez and Oscar De La Hoya by his side to do this. So, which is really, really cool. So by getting these sponsorships and this support, he's able to keep doing this. So it's kind of like a self-funding machine to be able to give to people. But then the views he gets from doing that helps to do even more. So it's kind of neat. He's posted hundreds of videos of doing this. Many of the people he's done this for are actually Spanish-speaking immigrants. And so it's kind of a cool thing, giving them representation, he said. He estimates that he's actually taken about 50 workers to Disneyland since he started about a year ago. Some quotes from the article that it says, that made me smile. It says, "A hotel housekeeper smiles and tears up as she watches a parade float featuring Miguel from Coco. I don't remember the last time I've had a day for myself," she says. An older man wearing Mickey Mouse ears admits he's surprised by what he's seen. "I've never had an experience like this, even as a kid," he says. "I feel very happy." A landscaper who recently lost his job is shown shaking hands with Cinderella's fairy godmother. And in one video, a worker tells Morales he helped build part of the park, but never had a chance to visit it as a guest. I thought that was really cool. One more little section I want to read because I thought this was it hit me in the feels. "Even the men who started out their day with puzzled scowls in Morales' back seat are later shown wearing Mickey Mouse ears and squealing like children on roller coasters. That's the thing that always gets me," Morales says, "seeing or hearing them laughing."
Hard to fight the Disney magic.
Right? Exactly. It kind of almost forces you to reconnect with your inner child because everyone around you is. And that kind of to that point you brought up earlier, when you're with a group of people that are also unbridled, just letting their inner child show and just enjoying themselves, it kind of spreads. It's kind of contagious. And so it's cool to see that he's able to give this gift of that to these people that maybe haven't had an opportunity to feel that in years, or even since they were like a kid. Some comments that he's gotten on videos include, "As someone with a dad who hasn't had a day off since he got to the US, thank you truly." Another comment says, "I swear you heal a lot of people's inner child. Most immigrants spend most of their life working and saving and not being able to go out to places like this. Thank you for all that you do." And then one more comment, "Hardworking people deserve to get spoiled too. God bless your soul for giving them that experience." Yeah, it's really, really cool. And it does address that some people kind of question his intentions for doing
Yeah,
this.
that's definitely the argument, the thought that comes into mind that is worth addressing. Like, yes, there are some out there who could make the argument, raise the concern about, the ethicalness of, you're
Using
doing this to
people for the
make
views.
money, you're building a following, you're building an influence, and that gets in the ethical dilemma of like, oh, and do bad intentions like outweigh a good deed, and if
Right.
that is the case, but in the case of this podcast, I feel like it focuses on the positive, which is that people are being able to like find their inner child, and like first, a lot of them, it sounds like, be able to actually experience a day off for the first time, and
Yeah.
who knows how long. Now, when it comes to immigrants, it's hard to tell if like maybe I try not to get too wrapped up in like the naysay argument,
The
about like maybe he's
intentions.
taking advantage of, because they're in a vulnerable community, that they're not going to protest as much. They're just going to go along with it, maybe more than someone who's not an immigrant would. But also, flip side of that, maybe they're the community that maybe needs it more, because again, a lot of them work all the time to
Yeah.
like earn their place or earn their keep of sorts. So like there's a lot going on here. There's a lot that could be discussed from a philosophical, ethical perspective. But at the end of the day, there's 50 some people that have been able to have a great time and like discover their inner child in a way, or just have a day off that they may never have been able to otherwise under different circumstances.
Right.
So maybe, I don't know, I feel like the purpose of this podcast, maybe focus on that element,
On the positive. And
but
the
also
fact that he
acknowledging that
says he's
that's,
given out
yeah.
around $600,000 to street vendors in Southern California since his efforts began. So even if, let's just say for sake that he was doing it with not great intentions, which it seems like he is, but let's just say he wasn't. The fact is, he's given out around $600,000 to people, and because he also pays them for that day that they would have been working as well,
Right.
and gives tips to people and stuff like that. So there's that as well. And it actually has, Morales does comment about like his intentions are pure. Social media has just allowed me to be able to do things like this, and who knows what other amazing things we can do. And so it's just kind of, he sees it as a opportunity where the internet can come together for good and actually be used for a good purpose and be able to kind of fuel this giving machine. And he actually does this now with his 3-year-old son that often comes with him on the Disneyland trips, which I think is really cool. So kind of a neat thing to be able to do with his kid as well. So yeah, I just thought all around it's very wholesome. How fun would it be to be able to have the money to be able to just do that for strangers and be like, hey, I'm going to give you an amazing day at Disneyland. Let's go. I already paid for your day of work, so you're not missing out on your income. Let's just go and you can have fun, and we'll get you Mickey Mouse ears, and you can just enjoy the roller coasters or the shows or whatever you find joy with. I just think that's so amazing, and I can't even imagine being able to do that for somebody. That's so cool.
Yeah, I am curious about the logistics of how that works with the employer, because like, yeah, sure, you're paying for them to walk
But
away
who's
from the
gonna
job, but
do
who's
the
doing the
job?
job?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Right.
that's the part where I'm like, I guess
How
it
does
depends on
that
the
work?
job, or I don't know, maybe the money's worth it. I don't know. That's the only part that I'm
Exactly.
curious about logistically, but it's video, so as long as it's not all faked or staged, I mean.
Yeah. But interesting. Oh, I guess I didn't say where this is from. I should have. I always do, and I forgot. This article is from CNN. So, yeah, if you want to check out the article, as always, I will post in the description. There's a lot more that I didn't cover that it talks about that I think is also very interesting. I'm just trying to keep it brief so that if you want to see more, I highly recommend, because you should check out the articles that we post, because it's kind of more information and it's supporting the people that made these positive articles as well. So we want to make sure we're giving credit where credit is due. So some person at CNN put together this awesome article and interviewed him and stuff. So
That being said, I feel like they're doing okay.
I
CNN.
mean, yeah, but I'm
Probably,
just saying
but-
it's cool. It's
Yeah,
cool
no.
to support, and the more views that these pages get, these news articles, the more likely they are to put out more positive
Yes,
content
that's
potentially
true.
too. So, and that's part of the reason why we started this podcast in the first place, is to try to uplift these stories. So hopefully, if we can push more people to find these stories and to talk about them. And then maybe it can cause a chain reaction where they'll actually make more stories that are positive because they're seeing more clicks, just like the negative ones that are being shared around. So kind of that kind of viewpoint, I guess. Yeah. So, With that, we will end today's podcast episode. Tune in next Wednesday for our next episode. Next Wednesday's episode is going to be all about spending time with others and the value of our time that we give to others. So please tune in for that. We also have a Reddit subreddit now called Uplift Positive Stories. If you would like to check that out, post positive news stories, positive stories from your own life, things like that, topics you want us to talk about on here. If you have a story about finding your inner child that you want to share with us, we'd love to have that too. You can also share it to us on an email as well at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com.
And for you video lovers, we now have a video format. So
Yeah.
let us know if you're liking this and if you want to keep seeing more.
Yeah.
So if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe and help get that channel growing.
Thanks so much for listening as always, and we hope you'll tune in next week.
And stay positive.